The morning sun was just beginning to warm the quiet streets of Willow Creek Estates when Darius King stepped out onto his porch, a mug of black coffee in hand, and the word Special Forces emblazoned across his back. He'd only been home for a few weeks, still adjusting to the slow rhythm of civilian life after years of deployments, but he'd already noticed how different the battles were here. In the Army, you knew your enemy. In the suburbs, they had behind-rules committees and polite smiles. Darius had bought this house for his mother, a promise kept after years of sacrifice, and he took pride in every inch of it, from the freshly cut lawn to the flag that fluttered by the mailbox. However, peace in Willow Creek was always contingent, and this morning, as he sipped his coffee and observed the world awaken, he sensed a storm on the horizon. It came in the form of a black SUV that was scurrying down the street like a lion. 3 people stepped out. 2 men in crisp, navy blue uniforms with HOA police stitched across their chests, and a blonde woman in a tailored suit, clutching a clipboard like it was a weapon. Darius kept a relaxed posture while keeping his senses sharp as he watched them approach. He'd seen this kind of theater before, authority worn like a mask, power wielded by those who'd never earned it. The woman led the way, her heels clicking on the sidewalk, her expression set in a look of practiced disdain. "Mr. King," she called, her voice loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "We need to speak with you about your outstanding HOA fees." Darius set his mug down on the porch rail, his gaze steady. "Every month, I pay my dues. If there's a problem, you can send a letter like everyone else." The woman's lips curled into a smirk. "We've sent multiple notices. You've shrugged it off. Under the authority of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, you are now subject to arrest for non-payment of fees." The 2 HOA police officers stepped forward, hands resting on their belts, trying to look intimidating. Darius almost laughed. He'd faced down warlords and insurgents, survived ambushes and firefights. These men looked like they'd never seen a real fight in their lives. "You're going to arrest me?" he asked, his voice calm, almost amused. "For what? $20 and a late fee?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "You don't pay fees, you get arrested. That's the rule. Now, are you going to come quietly, or do we need to escalate this?" By now, neighbors were gathering on their lawns, drawn by the spectacle. Some watched with concern, others with curiosity, a few with their phones out, recording every moment. Darius glanced at the crowd, then back at the so-called officers. "You have no legal authority to arrest anyone," he said, his voice carrying across the street. "You're not real police. And if you set foot on my property, you'll be trespassing." The taller officer puffed out his chest. "We're authorized by the HOA to enforce community rules." Darius shook his head, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're authorized to hand out parking tickets and write nasty letters. That's it. Now, unless you have a real warrant, I suggest you leave." The woman bristled, her grip tightening on the clipboard. "We'll see what the sheriff has to say about that." Darius didn't flinch. "Call him. I'll wait." The standoff stretched, tension thick in the air. The officers shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other, realizing they were outmatched. The woman tried one last time, her voice rising. "You're making a big mistake, Mr. King. People like you don't last long in neighborhoods like this." Darius stepped forward, his presence suddenly filling the space between them. "People like me built this country, and I'm not going anywhere." The crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, others whispering nervously. The HOA police hesitated, then slowly backed away, the woman glaring as she retreated. Darius watched them go, his heart steady, his resolve unshaken. He knew there was more to come. In Willow Creek, power never surrendered without a fight. But as he turned back to his house, greeted by the quiet applause of a few brave neighbors, Darius King knew he was ready for whatever came next. The story of the arrest attempt spread through Willow Creek Estates faster than wildfire. By noon, Darius's phone was buzzing with texts from neighbors. Some supportive, some nervous, a few apologetic for not stepping in. He shrugged it off. He'd learned long ago that courage was rare, and most people only found their voice when someone else took the first stand. Still, he was surprised when misses. Jenkins from 2 doors down brought over a plate of cookies and whispered, "We're with you, mister. King, that woman's been harassing people for years." Darius thanked her, feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe the neighborhood wasn't as divided as it seemed. But the HOA wasn't done. The next morning, a thick envelope appeared in his mailbox, an official notice of violation, listing a laundry list of supposed infractions. Grass too long by half an inch, a flag that was not regulation size, a garden hose left uncoiled. The sum of the fines for each violation was enough to make anyone's head spin. Darius read the letter twice, then laughed. He'd seen intimidation tactics before, and this was amateur hour. He scanned the letter, sent it to his lawyer, and then posted a copy in the neighborhood group chat with a simple caption, "Anyone else getting these?" The responses poured in. Dozens of neighbors shared their own stories. Fines for mailbox paint, for wind chimes, for leaving a car in the driveway overnight. Some had paid out of fear. Others had fought and lost. A few had even moved away. Darius replied to each message, encouraging them to document everything and promising to look into the HOA's legal limits. That afternoon, he called a meeting at his house. More than 20 people showed up, some nervous, some angry, all tired of living under the HOA's thumb. Darius stood at the front of his living room, his special forces training evident in the way he commanded attention without raising his voice. "This isn't about grass or flags," he said. "It's about control. They want us scared and divided. But if we stand together, we can push back." He outlined a plan. Everyone would keep records of every letter, every fine, every encounter. They'd pool resources to hire a lawyer, and they'd demand a full audit of the HOA's finances and practices. If the board refused, they'd take it to the county and the press. The energy in the room shifted from fear to determination. People felt like they had a chance for the first time. Over the next week, the pressure from the HOA intensified. The police SUV cruised the block daily, and the blonde woman, Ms. Cartwright, the HOA president, sent out mass emails warning of escalating noncompliance. But the residents of Willow Creek were no longer afraid. They shared updates in the group chat, watched out for each other, and made it clear that intimidation wouldn't work. Darius became the unofficial leader of the resistance, fielding calls, organizing meetings, and keeping everyone focused. He even reached out to a local reporter who agreed to look into the HOA's practices. The turning point came one Saturday morning when the fake HOA police returned, this time with a camera crew in tow, hoping to catch Darius off guard. Instead, they found him waiting on the porch with a dozen neighbors who were all recording with their phones out. Ms. Cartwright strode up, flanked by her officers, and announced, "Mr. King, you are under arrest for repeated violations and failure to pay fees." Darius didn't move. "You're not real police. You have no authority here, and you're breaking the law." The camera crew hesitated, sensing the mood. Some of the neighbors came forward to block the path as the group formed a line. Mrs. said, "You're not taking him anywhere." Jenkins said, her voice trembling but strong. "Ms." Cartwright's face turned red. "You're all in violation. You'll regret this." Darius stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "The only thing I regret is not standing up sooner. This ends today." The standoff was broken by the arrival of a real police cruiser, called by one of the neighbors. The officer listened to both sides, then turned to Ms. Cartwright. "You can't arrest anyone. You're not law enforcement. If you keep this up, you'll be the one facing charges." As the fictitious HOA police fled, their authority was violated, and the crowd erupted in applause. Darius shook the officer's hand, grateful for the backup. That night, the neighborhood celebrated. People brought food, shared stories, and for the first time in years, Willow Creek felt like a community again. Darius stood in the center of it all, humbled and proud. He knew the fight wasn't over. The HOA would try again, and there would be more battles ahead. But now he wasn't alone. And as he looked around at his neighbors, united and unafraid, Darius King knew they were ready for whatever came next. The days that followed felt like a new chapter for Willow Creek Estates. The group chat buzzed with updates and encouragement, and neighbors who had once kept to themselves now stopped to chat on the sidewalk or wave from their porches. Darius found himself at the center of a movement he hadn't planned to lead, but his calm strength and refusal to be intimidated inspired others to step forward. The HOA, however, was not ready to surrender its grip. Ms. Cartwright doubled down, sending out more threatening letters, and even attempted to call an emergency meeting to restore order. But this time, the residents were ready. They filled the community center to the brim with documentation, legal counsel, and a newfound sense of unity. Darius stood at the front, flanked by neighbors who had once been too afraid to speak. When Cartwright tried to speak, the audience demanded answers. Why are you using fake police? Where are funds going? Why are you targeting certain families? The questions came fast and hard, and for the first time, Ms. Cartwright looked rattled. Darius presented the evidence of harassment, the illegal fines, and the tactics of intimidation with calm authority. He presented the findings of the lawyer and the local reporter, evidence of financial mismanagement and possible fraud. After reading statements from neighbors who had fled in fear, the room was silent as he finished. We all want a safe, beautiful neighborhood, but that doesn't mean we have to live in fear. We should be served rather than ruled by the HOA. The residents voted overwhelmingly to suspend the current board and demand a full audit. A temporary committee was formed, with Darius as its chair, to oversee the transition and ensure transparency. The county was notified of the fake HOA police, and the scandal was covered by the local news, bringing to light the violations that had gone unchecked for years. The fallout was swift. Ms. Cartwright and her closest allies resigned, facing possible legal action. The HOA police disappeared overnight, and the new committee began the hard work of rebuilding trust. Darius worked tirelessly, meeting with residents, reviewing finances, and helping to draft new bylaws that protected everyone's rights. He made sure the new rules were fair, clear, and enforced with respect, not fear. The atmosphere in Willow Creek changed almost overnight. Neighbors organized block parties, helped each other with yard work, and started a community garden. The sense of relief was palpable. People smiled more, children played outside without worry, and the old divisions began to fade. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Darius's mother, who had been quietly proud throughout the entire ordeal, gave her son a hug. You did more than stand up for yourself, Darius. You gave this neighborhood its heart back. Darius smiled, humbled by her words. I just did what needed to be done, Mama, but I couldn't have done it alone. As summer turned to fall, Willow Creek became a model for other communities facing similar struggles. Darius was invited to speak at town halls and neighborhood associations, sharing his story and encouraging others to stand up for their rights. He always ended with the same message. You don't have to be in special forces to fight for your home. You just have to believe you deserve respect, and never let anyone take it from you. The story of the fake HOA police and the man who wouldn't back down became local legend, a reminder that real strength comes from standing together. And as Darius looked out over the neighborhood he'd helped to save, he knew that the battles of the past had forged something stronger than any rule or regulation, a true community, built on courage, respect, and the unbreakable will to do what's right. Willow Creek Estates felt like it was being transformed as the seasons changed and the leaves turned gold. The fear and suspicion that had once crept along the sidewalks were replaced by laughter, shared meals, and a sense of unity that ran deeper than any HOA rulebook. The new committee, with Darius as its steady chair, held open meetings in the park, where every resident's voice was heard and every concern was met with respect. The old board's legacy of intimidation faded into memory, replaced by a culture of transparency and kindness. Neighbors who had once kept their heads down now stopped to chat, to offer help, or to share a story. Darius's porch became a gathering place for advice, encouragement, and the occasional barbecue. The story of the fake HOA police and the Special Forces veteran who stood his ground became a local legend, a tale parents told their children about standing up for what's right and never letting bullies win. Darius, though humble about his role, was often sought out for guidance and support. He helped organize neighborhood watch groups, taught self-defense classes at the community center, and made sure every resident knew their rights. The real police, once distant and distrusted, became partners in keeping the community safe, working with Darius and the committee to ensure that no one would ever again be threatened by imposters or overzealous officials. The transformation was so profound that even the city council took notice, inviting Darius and several neighbors to speak about their experience and the power of community action. On the anniversary of the day the fake cops tried to arrest him, the neighborhood threw a block party unlike any other. Games for the kids, music, food, and a sense of celebration permeated the air. Darius's mother raised a toast to her son, her voice thick with emotion. To Darius, who reminded us all that courage isn't just about facing danger, it's about standing up for each other every single day. The crowd cheered, and Darius, a little embarrassed but deeply moved, thanked everyone for their trust and friendship. He felt a deep sense of peace as he looked around at the faces of his neighbors, once strangers but now friends and allies, as the sun set and the stars continued to shine overhead. He knew there would always be challenges, that injustice could creep in when least expected. But he also knew that together, they could face anything. The incident at Willow Creek taught us a simple but profound lesson. No bully, no matter how brave, can break a community's unity. And as Darius and his mother sat on their porch that night, watching the lights twinkle across the lawns and listening to the gentle hum of conversation, they knew they had not only defended their home, they had helped build something lasting and true. The story of the Special Forces veteran and the fake HOA police would live on, not just as a warning, but as a beacon of hope for anyone who ever found themselves standing at the door, facing down fear, and choosing to fight back with strength, dignity, and the unbreakable power of family and community.